Hey, so I guess it's time for another video. And this one, I'm going to be going to Duna. Direct follow-up to the other Outer Planets mod video, by the way. Second installment in the series, you could say. During the construction of this ship, I definitely dilly-dallied a lot, because I guess I was trying to just see which liquid fuel engine I wanted to use. I wasn't really confident with the near future technologies additions to the lineup, to the roster. But this mission, I was designing it to go to Duna, maybe get some signs from Duna, dip into the atmosphere for a bit, get some atmospheric data, but it ended up being an Ike mission as well. As, well, I guess it's not much of a spoiler because I'll probably put it in the thumbnail. But I didn't design the rocket to go to Ike, as you'll see with the lack of landing legs. I'm adding a thermal control system because I thought the heat would be a problem. I have a heat control or heat systems or something like that mod, and that one's supposed to add more realistic heat problems, I guess, that I have to solve with the thermal radiators, but it didn't actually come up and I forgot to extend them the whole time. Again, just trying some new parts that I've not seen before. Service tanks, the lot. The Ocelot engine right there is a sustainer engine, so it's meant to be used as the first stage of the rocket. And if you imagine the central column of rocket stuff, and then you have side boosters, then as the side boosters fall away, the sustainer engine is the engine that's still in the middle column and stays behind to kind of sustain the rocket as it enters the high atmosphere. Sort of as a first stage to second stage intermediary. But I wasn't using it like that, I was just putting it randomly somewhere there, thinking it was going to be good for an interplanetary stage. But there I am switching to the Poodle and moving it down to a more sustainable position. One problem I had with this was that I have waterfall installed to make the engine plumes look better as they come out of the different motors I have, but I had a problem that I installed the waterfall for stock parts, but I have the restock mod installed as well to make the engines look a bit better, and a lot of parts, of course, not just the engines. But that messed up some things with the way the plume kind of comes out of the rocket, and you'll see that quite a few times as I go through the mission, that there is just misalignment with where the plume comes out, especially with the Poodle that I just put on for our second stage at this point in time. Now, I have the twin bores on either side, but I don't think I've ever used the twin bores. They're really hard to use because they're just super inconvenient. So I cut out there a test flight in which the twin bores did not suffice. And now I'm going to be fitting on maybe more appropriate side boosters. Again, with the sort of turned inwards cone design. And then, hopefully this will get me to space. Alright, starting with the takeoff, you can already see some inconsistencies with the vector and its plume, though it's sort of hard to see because I'm not exactly looking at it at the same angle. The vector and its, well, vectoring abilities are really helpful, which is why I chose it, and it also just has such high thrust that it makes sense to put even on a 2.5 meter side booster. As I didn't have the engine plate, I did only put one on each side, but I would have put two, maybe three, and then put bigger boosters. But that's for, well, when I have engine plates. Circularizing here, It was also pretty simple. I was very efficient with my ascending burn, so I actually kept the sustainer, the ocelot, for quite a while because it's a bit overpowered for the actual mission. And even now you can already see that according to Kerbal Engineer readouts, which is those green numbers and white text at the top of my screen, I have 4,800 meters of delta V. Well, I guess the staging menu also says that, but it tends to be less accurate. So 4,800 meters of delta V, which is plenty, and I honestly could have even landed on Duna with that amount of delta V. Okay, here you have me making a window, like a launch window, which I probably should have done before I launched, hence the name launch window. But I decided just to time warp to it in orbit because it doesn't really make a difference. The Kerbals don't really mind staying in space for that long. Then I'm setting up a basic encounter with Duna, and because the way the launch window works, this is just the most optimal time. So I'm only spending, is that 1,000 delta V to get an encounter? And once I do the mid-course correction, the amount to circularize will also be very low. Then I have some things to get through. And what I noticed is in the map menu, I only noticed this in editing, but I thought I had maybe accidentally uninstalled this mod called Precise Node. But no, I did actually still have it. It's just tucked away in the bottom right, as you can sort of see it overlapping with the toolbar. Just, you can see UT, PORG, NOM, RAD, just the beginnings of all the Precise Node information. There pops up again. I think eventually I do find it in there, but it would have been useful to use, I guess, instead of using the built-in stock KSP maneuver node adjuster that's there. That's alright, I managed to get a pretty good encounter this way anyway. And yeah, when I eventually burn, I get the periapsis down to maybe 40 kilometers. That's really good. I tend to not really care about making it equatorial for moons because that's just a big bother, especially if I'm landing, then it doesn't matter at all. I just want to land near the equator. But for going to Duna, especially seeing as I want to come back sometime, and I wasn't planning to go to the moon anyway, I just thought I'll try and make this one pretty equatorial. And just 5.7 meters per second for the maneuver. It'll take, yeah, less than a second to burn. The Poodle's pretty good at that kind of stuff. You could see it in the VAB. I added 2 side fuel tanks just to increase the delta V, just by that tiny extra amount. And that's just a cheeky little addition, I guess, to the rocket. I think it gave it maybe 800 extra delta V. Not that I needed it, but it was pretty helpful, making me more confident in doing the Ike part of the mission. You can see I tried to line up some scenic shots maybe for the thumbnail, because at this point I still thought that I'm only going to Duna. So I thought, okay, let me see if I can get a good screenshot after I did the science, but really it wasn't going to be that. Oh, there we go. That as you know is not the thumbnail. But those what's it called? The storage unit? I already forgot. Service bay. The service bay. Yeah, those doors come in handy later anyway. So I guess it's relevant. And I've also started to do my science while out on EVA because it just feels better. I sometimes don't mind taking it from inside, especially if I'm mid-flight, obviously, through an atmosphere, for example, but in this case, it was like a decision between doing it from here, which is kind of lame, or I could go out and literally make a Kerbal, do the science, make a scientist do the science, and that's just, well, that's just, yeah, that feels a lot better than sitting back at mission control or whatever, telling Jebediah to just press buttons on his control unit, whatever it's called, his interface. And there in a couple moments, I'll drop the side side fuel tanks, and I lower my apoapsis quite a bit, but then I realize I just got a free encounter with Ike. So I kind of bring it back up, and Ike's got a huge gravity well, so it's really easy to get an encounter. And I just, at that point, decided, screw it, I'm going to Ike. Now, I still don't have any landing legs on this thing at all, so I was a bit worried about landing. I thought that the poodle's not bad when you've got the four individual engine bells, and you turn off the gimbal. It's not the worst thing to land on, but it isn't exactly landing legs. A flat surface, or well, even a flat surface would be better, or 4-3, couple things jutting out on the side would be very good. And actually, I unlock with the science from this mission a new part that's sort of node mounted. So I added on like an engine, but I added on before the engine to sort of like an engine plate to act as more landing legs. And that's pretty cool. It's mostly designed for stuff that's meant to be semi-permanent, like a base, in which case you can individually adjust each leg. But I think it could also be pretty cool for a Apollo 11 style landing, where they, left behind the descent stage and just flew it with the ascent stage. Not that I'd want to do a complete recreation of that, because that just seems like way overdone, but it would be fun to do a mission in that style. There you have it, perfect suicide burn. Almost perfect. But as I bring it down, the gimbal completely unlocked on it. I touch down and fall straight away. Yeah, there was no preventing that. Keep in mind, the radiator panels are still not in use, because it appears they are useless. I go out again, you can hear the little Bob Kerman breaths every now and then, and I do all the science. I have some EVA reports to do, just from jumping. I guess that counts as in space near. And then surface sample, all sorts of things. 240, couple hundred, I guess, in total. I plant the flag, as every self-respecting Kerbal does. And I made a little pun about Mike and Ike's, the like gummy jelly thing. I don't know what they're. I actually don't know what they are. They taste pretty good. And this is the Mike. This is the Ike, no Mike. So it's just Ike and Ike's, I guess. It's a not a great pun. But I think Jebediah is kind of sitting. I'm imagining he's sitting in the command pod. Bob's just outside doing the sign. So he's talking to Bill. They're like doing the maths on this. How can they take off? They've mutually decided it's not possible. And here's some command pod signs instead of going out on EVA. But then I think the gimbal of the Poodle could actually come to my advantage. So here I am testing out which direction to gimbal, ideally, because I tend to forget, especially when I'm upside down on my side, as you can see by the nav ball. But Yeah, a little explosion. But eventually, full throttle brings me up quite nicely. And look at that gimbal and SAS working together. I've got so much control over the craft, especially such a light one. And I just love that. It's a great feeling. Getting into orbit, mostly I do it from the map screen. And it's not a perfect takeoff, but what can you expect from my conditions? So I'm quite like on an angle. But this will eventually be fine. I decided there, I guess that I'm a I'm a brave person and that I don't need a maneuver node. So I just started burning, not even taking into consideration that I could be burning away from Duna and like out into a different system. But another window later, and everything seems fine. That was just to fix the I forgot what it's called. The tilt, the no, axial tilt would be like what planets have. That was just to fix the tilt, and here's just a circular eye, so I don't accidentally um, get caught in Ike's sphere of influence and launched out towards like Eve or something, just randomly during my time warp that I'm about to do. No, I guess I am perfecting this. Speaking of perfect, do you see for a second there was 700 meters per second against surface, like exactly? That was pretty cool. Yeah, I'm on the surface now, but I don't know why. Probably shouldn't be. But there you have me trying to not have my screen freak out as I time warp. But I see like yeah, just selecting whatever you're orbiting tends to work pretty well. And yeah, and one eject angle later, which is pretty helpful if you're not like a veteran player, which I am not. And there we go, easy carbon encounter, 620 meters per second, and I have maybe triple that, and that's sort of crazy because I don't need to do from Duna. I don't need to do an injection burn. I'm pretty sure I could probably get away with just off the heat shields, especially if I did it like if I perfectly worked it out so I was at the right height. But with 1,200 meters to spare, I can do a mid-course correction and an injection burn, and that makes things just that much easier. I probably could have taken that mud encounter to save even more delta V on injecting, but at this point, why would I even need that? Now here you can see I would not be able to do a full injection burn, I don't think, if I hadn't had those side tanks, so good that I did. And there's the approach. Trying to get my periapsis just real low. And look at that, I can not only capture, but I can fully kill my relative velocity with the remaining fuel. So, thank you KSP for being so forgiving. And time warp to Kerbin, and from here it's pretty standard. I'm just gonna burn retrograde until I'm eventually brought down to a trajectory that brings me through the clouds down to the ocean, or I think I landed in the ocean. Okay, well, I think that's a pretty successful mission. Again, don't need to care about my tilt at all because I'm landing. And there, I think I've just loaded a quick save because oh yes, because I wanted to have the fuel tank and engine detach at like the last moment so that it would be a little bit of fireworks show. I know Jeb, Bill, and Bob really like that. The truth be honest, I really like that. I didn't actually get to see it that much. Or well, there you see a big trail, but it gets away pretty quickly, seeing as it's not as I don't know what it's called. I guess it's more aerodynamic than us, but I don't know what you would call that. Like relatively, would it be more unaerodynamic? There you have it, touchdown. It's all scenic and such because I removed the HUD. Got a little excited there. Finally, that blue light you can see in the bottom right of the Kerbal view of inside the cockpit. That's very traditional of being on the Kerbin Ocean. 2,627 signs. Yeah, I think Ike added 1,000 just on its own because it was a landing, and landings always add a ton, especially from like surface sample and such. So that's pretty much it, I guess. I hope to go to an outer planet soon, but for now, I've just got this science to work with, and nothing more, nothing less. Actually, one more thing to point out. I did notice there that the nuclear engine takes a specific kind of fuel, like nuclear fuel, and that's pretty cool. So I won't just get to use liquid fuel for everything, especially if I want to make an SSTO, a nuclear SSTO. Then I'll need the specific fuel. All right, well that's it. Thank you for watching.